No, I think he's on his way back.
Is he ahead of me?
Yeah, I think he just stayed to hang.
I don't know how to work this one.
I'm gonna put you.
Oh, there, okay.
I don't know how to work it.
Hello.
Just fine.
Is it
We've
just,
got a
it
seat
just, it went
already.
off.
Okay.
I turned it
What
off
a
and it went
nice
off.
room. What is this? What's this room?
This is the Kansas Business Hall of Fame room.
Oh, is it?
So this is the reason you'll be back in June.
There you go.
Team Kansas, Kansas Cavalry.
Oh, it does this, okay,
Do you
good.
need to sit?
What a beautiful setup.
Sure.
Where's our student leaders? Go over here.
Yeah, get you guys up here. I want to hear from you.
Please.
Yeah, have a seat.
Like in the sorority house, right?
I want to thank everybody for being out today. Just had an excellent meeting with faculty, students, employees of the university. Sean Rock, who's doing an excellent job. I'm really delighted to have him in the leadership position here at Emporia State, and Regent Edwards that's here as well. This is wrapping up my tour of higher education institutions in the state of Kansas. I've been to many of them. What I'm calling for is stable funding for higher education in the state of Kansas. I proposed a 2-year budget. Normally we do 1-year budgets, year-to-year budgets. I proposed a 2-year budget because of the tax proposal last year to show people here's how we can make it through the 2 years. I think it's important that we have stable funding for higher education. I have asked higher education to do a lot more in this state. I've asked them to increase engineering graduates 50%. I've asked for rankings to go up in selected places. I've asked for technical education to go up. The state now is funding 100% of technical education if you're in high school. Emporia State does a great broad cross-section. It's particularly well known for its business school and for its education departments, which are the education school is nationally known as in Washington. It would be cited on a regular basis, which is a source of pride for me representing the state. But I think it's critical that we do have stable funding. And I want to make one further, a bit refined point that I haven't at other places. This is a repeat, but these are momentum killers if this drops. Emporia State will find a way to continue if the funding drops. You'll find a way, but you've got a momentum going. You're raising funds privately. You're moving forward, and people don't give funds to higher education to replace state dollars. They give it on top of the base, and so we want to have a base stable funding so that the place can grow on the other pieces of what they're doing, and I think it's important we try to do what we can to not hurt that tuition price point because students are becoming increasingly sensitive to tuition. Not that they weren't at the outset, but a lot of states are reducing substantially their support for higher education, saying that, well, you can get it from tuition, you can get it from fundraising, all of which is true. But it drives up your tuition a lot, and we want talent to come into Kansas. We want talent to stay in Kansas. And to do that, we need to offer a high quality of higher education at a competitive price point. And that's why I think this is just really important for us to do this. Legislature comes back in May 8th. We have an excellent legislature. These are a number of very talented people. It's a citizens legislature. These are all citizens of the state of Kansas, so they've got other jobs, and I think we need to spend some time in an interim committee really digging through the finances of higher education, because a lot have questions on how higher education is funded and how it moves its dollars around, and what I'd like to see is have an interim where we spend a lot of time looking at the funding. You open your books up, right. Say, here's how we do this, and so people can get their questions answered. Which legitimate questions. I just think we really ought to do it on an interim basis. Dr. Shunrock, I don't know if you have anything to add.
Well, Governor, as we said earlier, thank you so much. I know the Board of Regents, Dr. Edwards being here, and Emporia State and Emporia. As you know, this is an important part of this area, not only the community and the region, but we're excited. We certainly appreciate your continued support. It means a great deal. And as you know, as we talked earlier, it makes a difference in these lives. And ultimately, when it comes down to it, in the beginning and the end of the day, it's about making differences in lives. And as we've talked about these two already, staying in Kansas and continue to make differences each and every day. So we do very much appreciate that. And as we've talked before, whatever we can do to continue to support that. And we've talked to our legislators and we'll continue to do so. And good people and who absolutely care about the state and care about the future.
Anything from the students? Say anything?
Just echoing what I said in our.
How to identify yourself.
Sorry.
in case someone-
I'm Brooke, student body president. Just echoing what I said previously, it is amazing as a student, coming from the student perspective, that no one wants to see an increase or raise in tuition dollars. So to get that support from our state is wonderful. Your proposed budget of 2-year flat funding is a great thing to hear. No one wants to see a raise in tuition, so we thank you so very much for your support and your initiatives for higher education.
My name's Rachel Countryman, incoming student body president. Just going off of what Brooks said, I really feel like the higher education gives us opportunities that will not only help us figure out who we are as individuals and citizens in the state, but it will also give back to the state in the long run, which ultimately helps everyone. So we just really appreciate your support, and we hope that we can do everything possible to continue supporting you.
Thanks. Dr. Edwards is on the Board of Regents. Any comments, Dr. Edwards?
Just would like to celebrate Emporia State for the work that has taken place here. You all are doing much good work in the state of Kansas and developing very, very well-rounded students with just a little bit of support. So we want to continue to support you as best possible. And we had an opportunity to visit classrooms on last week, and I feel like I had a bit of an incomplete education because I went to the music hall and learned to read music for a day. So that was exciting, and we want to make sure that the classroom sizes, the quality education that you have, the excellence by which you're being exposed to your post-secondary education, and then ultimately what you give back to the state as a result of that is maintained here at Emporia. So thank you all for what you're doing.
And for the media to understand, we also had them go to classes. There was no quiz that day, so we want to be sure that we kept the bar high.
Failed
but,
miserably.
May attempt to answer any questions or.
Governor Brownback, you had mentioned that you wanted to optimize the talent that comes out of Emporia State. The talent that we have here includes 2 national champion debaters.
Yes,
Elijah Smith
congratulations.
and Ryan,
I saw that in the
Ryan
newspaper.
Wash, who are part of a community in the humanities departments here at Emporia State. But your roadmap for Kansas emphasizes engineering, science-based, economically productive degrees. What would your roadmap for Kansas do to include the talent that we foster here at Emporia State in terms of liberal arts, humanities, and the like?
Well, it supports all of it. I mean, if you don't have stable funding for higher education, you're not going to have those things that those gentlemen, and I celebrate them winning that. That was fabulous. That was a great encouragement to read about. What we're trying to do, as I mentioned, we're trying to get the state economy growing. And we're trying to attract people to Kansas. We've lost private sector jobs last decade. We've been losing out-migration of people to the surrounding states for some period of time. So we're trying to get that dynamic to change. And what we've done is we've lowered the taxes, particularly on small businesses, 0 taxes on LLCs and sub-S, because most Kansans work for themselves or for somebody with 10 or fewer employees. That's 3/4 of the state. So we're trying to attract that. The early returns look good. We had a record number of LLC filings last year. We've had good private sector job creation. That was in the roadmap as well. If you get those things moving, you have more funds to put in education, and you have more funds to put across the board in education. So that's, you can kind of go at this one of 2 ways. There are other states that are saying, let's just raise taxes. There are a number of states, Maryland's doing this, I think California's doing this, saying, let's just raise taxes. Because we know if we raise taxes, we're going to have more money coming in and we're going to put it into these things. There are a number of others that are saying, if you get that too far out of whack, people are going to move because they act economically rational. And you're seeing that happen. So we have lost people over 30 years. We were the 28th most populous state in the 70s, and we're now 30 32nd, going to 33rd is the trajectory we're on. And I don't know, most CEOs or presidents or coaches are not hired to manage decline. They manage to, no, turn it around. And that's what we're trying to do, and we'll have more funds. And we'll fund those things initially. The base state aid helps and covers those, and they'll continue to be funded. The augmentation we've been trying to get in places to really be economic growth drivers.
Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, sir.
I'm Ben Fitch with the Emporia Gazette.
Hi, Ben.
Pleasure to meet you.
Yeah.
I'm curious, along your tour, I'm curious if you've heard many concerns. I'm glad to hear that you have a plan for stabilized funding for the next 2 years. But beyond that, though, it's still a little uncertain about what tax cuts might do to funding for higher education. Would you speak a little bit? Have you heard any concerns from educators or maybe even from student leadership?
I think everybody's always concerned about the future, and I am too. I can tell you from 30 years of data that if we stayed on the path we were on, where we were headed, and it was slow, probably accelerating decline. That's what we'd had for 30 years. So I'm relatively confident we would have continued substantial outmigration. We would have continued to lose businesses, and I'm tired of losing to Texas and Florida. I don't like it. So we've got a different path. Our projections show you've got a 2-year dip before you start building back substantially. And that's what I'm saying, we need to extend the 0.6 cent sales tax to make it through your 2-year dip. Proposed that last year. Proposed basically a flat tax, small business accelerator, whether that's the zero in LLCs, and keep the sales tax to fund your transition. Because that's the likely scenario. Now, if you get in a national recession, you know, we would be in trouble anyway, but it's going to be in difficulty. If things really start taking off, we're going to be in great shape. But those are the projections, and I think they're realistic. We had the consensus revenue estimators in last week, and they said, basically, we've been staying spot on with what our projections were. So we've got now the first data point, and they say, we're good. And we saved a substantial amount of money in the canned care change. We went to managed care on all of Medicaid. Medicaid was growing 7% roughly annually. We went to managed care on it, and we've now saved, looks like about $50 million on that. We're not cutting anybody off of it, and we're adding services, adding preventive dental. So now we're going to propose some of that money be used to buy down our wait list so we can add more people into the system by its changes. And these things all lean against each other. You can't just do one. We had to make changes with CAPERS because it was hugely underfunded. And so these all pull together, and I think our projections look pretty good. But you know, the further out you make them, the harder they are to say you're really going to be accurate. I don't trust a lot past 2 or 3 years on these because the national movement can change substantially on you. The global movement. That's very long, but
Well, no.
it's an important question. I want to bounce around unless nobody else has a question. I'd be happy to
Did
go
you
to
have a
it.
question, Chuck?
Not yet. Okay.
Yes, sir.
I'm sorry I didn't introduce myself earlier. I'm Matt Cook with the Bulletin. You stated in Wichita, Pittsburgh, and here seems to be a theme about you want to prevent a momentum killer. In November 2012, you proposed initiative-specific funding increases for higher education, and recently you proposed a freezing of cuts to higher education. That seems to me to be a momentum in the opposite direction that you're implying. Do you propose to continue any initiative-specific funding increases for higher education services that you deem valuable, or is it going to be a freeze across the board?
Thanks for asking that, because I explained this in here next door, and that's what the tour is supposed to be about, and obviously I haven't explained it well. Proposing stable funding, base funding, and then augmentation in key growth areas. For instance, technical education. I think there was a general view, and I certainly support it, that we were having fewer students in technical education when we needed more. And so the state stepped in. Last year, the legislature passed this. 100% funding for technical education is paid for by the state while any student's in high school. So if you're an Emporia high school student, You want to go to Flint Hills Technical College, learn CNA, become a CNA, you want to get IT degree, state will pay 100% of that. Initial fiscal note on that was $8 million. That's over and above. First year it went so well we had to up the budget to 11 and did. That's more that we're going in that area. Engineering. We need more engineers in the state. Engineers are one of your kind of key bases to growing an economy. Put a 5-year initiative to increase engineering graduates in the state of Kansas by 50%. That was an augmentation of $5 million each year, $5 million to do that. That's in place, is being done. One of the rankings at KU Med and K-State Veterinary School to go up as being kind of anchor institution, and Wichita State Aviation as being 3 kind of key anchors of the economy. $5 million each year, each of those categories, that's augmentation on top of your base. That's in place, and that's been moving forward. Well, we haven't got good measurements on whether or not those have had an impact. The engineering ones, things are moving with that. So that's what I've been saying to people is that's how I hope we can move forward. You keep your base steady, and then where you want to grow, you put more funds in, and we have put more funds in those. And I hope you could. I know it's not as simple as just saying we put $10 million more in higher ed. But I think it's far more effective if you do it this way, and we're seeing then the numbers associated with it. And then I want to do this in higher ed, but I want to do a reading initiative in the state of Kansas. I held a reading seminar or conference here a year and a half ago. We've got 28% of our 4th graders, according to the NAEP score, aren't reading at basic reading level in the 4th grade. 28%. And that's still within the top 15 in America. We're in the top 15 states, and you got 28% of your kids can't read at basic level. I think that's terrible. I'm glad we're in the top 15, but if you can't read, you're not going to go very far. So I proposed legislature this year, if you can't read in the 3rd grade at basic reading, you can't pass into the 4th grade. People are still wrestling with that, and they don't like the social consequences of that. I visited earlier Save the Children initiatives that we've brought into the state. This is a national group. Mark Shriver heads it, of the Shriver-Kennedy family.